Hi, Ty. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Josie?
I'm doing good. Well, last time I saw you, it was the Big Brother Canada finale. I was telling you you were on
Yep.
Six Buzz, all the things.
You're the
Um,
first person to let me know that.
how have you been since then?
Really good actually. I mean, life has been exciting in a lot of ways, challenges as anyone else would have, but I feel like I've had a lot of great opportunities, the Traitors being one of them. And it's just been a great ride since we last spoke, and I am only grateful for everything that's come since then.
Amazing. Well, I'm curious, what drew you to step into another intense social strategy game like the Traitors?
Well, I'm just a competitor, and I feel like, the experience that I had on Big Brother was so great that I was just like, all right, well, what's next? And I think that that's very much the same case, especially now, given what happened to me on Traders. I'm looking for what's next now. I need a bit of a redemption season, I think. So, yeah, it's just a competitor in me. I just love competing, and I think that adding the element of reality TV just makes it that much more exciting. So, if I'm already in the space, I might as well capitalize as much as I can, right?
Okay, well, we saw you in the episode Call Yourself a Strategist Who Adapts and Executes. How did your Big Brother experience shape the strategy you brought into this new environment?
I think heading into the Big Brother house, my strategy was just to be fluid, not to be too rigid. And, that might be, people might look at that as not having a strategy. But for me, just being able to adapt to the ever changing, elements of a game such as Big Brother or the Traders, I think is super crucial, sorry, or critical. So yeah, being in the Big Brother house and having that game plan work for me and lead me to a victory, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So that was the same kind of mindset and mind space I was in heading into the Traders. Just be fluid, adapt with whatever happens on any given day, and let that lead you to where it needs to take you. But things happen.
Well, I'm curious going into the car chats you had. Did you want to mention the fact that you were a winner straight away? I know that you referred to yourself as the villain of season 11, which I thought was
Yep.
funny. Um, like, what made you want to make that choice?
I think for me, number one thing is like, building trust with people is super important. And I think that, especially early on in the game, like traders, where people are looking for anything to hang their hat on to label you a trader. I think, leaving critical information out is a very valid thing for people to hang their hat on. So for me, it wasn't necessarily that I was going to jump out and say, hey guys, I'm a Big Brother Canada winner, but I also wasn't going to shy away from it so that they could use it against me later on, right? So if someone was to have brought it up, I wasn't going to deny it, and I was going to lean into it and say, yeah, I was a winner, and I had this edit. So that was part of it, and another part of it was, me and Kevin Jacobs were there together as Big Brother alumni, and I think, in my perspective, if I was a viewer or even just another contestant, if I'm looking at the cast and I see two Big Brother players and Kevin Jacobs is one of them, it's very likely that Kevin Jacobs would be the traitor of the two. So for me, I needed some heat on me. So I went and, leaned into that villainous, I guess, storyline that I was given on Big Brother because I wanted people to be somewhat suspicious of me so that I wouldn't, risk being banished right away as like a clear faithful, right? So it was a bit of strategy again, really leaning into the villain aspect of my storyline. Um, but yeah, it wasn't like anything I was gonna shy away from. Again, you can't choose what people, um, I guess, see about you. They're gonna learn who you are as you play together. But if I could have some type of influence on their mindset, then I'm gonna obviously take whatever precautions I can.
Well, you mentioned Kevin. I feel like we have to talk about him. How did you feel seeing the cast? There's a mix of people. Real Housewives of Toronto, you have
Yeah.
Canada's Drag Race, and obviously
Mhm.
Survivor and Big Brother. What were
Yeah.
your impressions of like the new faces that you hadn't met before, and also like maybe the people you might have been a little bit more familiar with?
Yeah, I think it was a great cast. I was surprised to see a lot of people. There's people that, again, my first time even hearing of, but great mixture of personality, both on the reality TV and the civilian side, if you want to call it that. So it was very exciting to meet everybody and get to know everybody. But in terms of the reality people that I seen, I was actually super excited that not only Kevin Jacobs was there, but also Omar, because these are people that I have, a relationship with outside of the game. So I thought I was shaping up pretty well to, be able to navigate the game alongside my fellow reality TV competitors. Venus was my first time meeting. I think everybody else was my first time meeting in person. So I was still excited. I was like, oh, we got Survivor in the house, we got Real Housewives in Toronto. It was a great time, and it was a exciting time for me to be able to connect with other people from a similar, I guess, walk of this type of journey that we're all on.
How do you balance going into a game with people you know? I feel like it's very different when you don't know people. Like it's kind of like game on. There's nothing really to hold on to necessarily
Mm-hmm.
or cause doubt or even
Mm-hmm.
be an advantage. So how did you balance that idea with Omer and Kevin?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, I just try to keep an open mind about everybody and not make assumptions. I'm a very aware person and analytical, and I think that I have a, if you want to call it a skill or a third sense of I'm able to read people pretty well. And I think that, even looking back on my experience on traders now, I think my read on people in terms of who they are was pretty spot on. Um, so I think that, obviously with Kevin and Omer, I have a personal relationship. And, with the how things played out with Kevin or whatever, I think because I know who Kevin is, it made it easier for me to digest and, process. Um, but with everybody else, everyone's starting with a clean slate, and it's just like a evaluation of you as an individual. I'm not just trying to judge you because of what somebody else might tell me or whatever. Because I'm sure if people were to do that about me, you're gonna have a whole different idea of who Ty is compared to if you get to know me yourself, right? So yeah, just going in with a clean slate with everybody, having my conversations, feeling everybody out, seeing what they give me, what they don't, and just taking it from there, painting my own picture.
Okay, well, we have to talk about the round table.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like being blindfolded and feeling Corinne's touch on your shoulder, only to find out that you're actually a faithful? Crazy twist.
I think that was one of the biggest, probably the second biggest letdown on my experience on Traitors Canada. Honestly, I was like, man, again, because for me, thinking about it from a production standpoint, again, if you have Kevin Jacobs on your cast, there's no way you're not making him a traitor. Like you're not watching Big Brother Canada to see Kevin Jacobs be a faithful. Doesn't make sense. So for me, it makes it obvious that I'm probably a faithful, right? So for me to have been given that power of being a traitor, I was like, oh, thank God, at least I have something to protect myself with. And then just for it to be taken away like that, I was like, man, what a letdown. But it makes the game exciting too, because it's like, okay, well, now how am I going to navigate this? You know what I mean? It put me into a different mode in terms of, okay, what are the things that I can do now to position myself correctly? Because I know Kevin's a trader. If I'm not, Kevin has to be. Which I could use to my benefit because again, hopefully he sees me as a shield for himself. Because if I go, then he's the only one left to. If I go as a faithful, it only puts more heat on him, right? So again, it was me. That was how I'm looking at the game and how I'm trying to plan my next steps moving forward. So yeah, it was a big letdown, but you don't have time to dwell on it. You just gotta, pick your head up and keep going.
Well, it was a letdown for you. I'm curious, were you so focused on the letdown or were you kind of quick to, okay, let me scope out the room and see like are people switching up? Like how do you go about that in that moment? It feels so
Yeah,
quick.
yeah. Initially, it was a suit like it was a very split second of damn. I wanted to be a trader so bad, but it's like all right. Well, the game goes on, and so I'm now peering across the table to see if there's any changes in people's body reactions or because at the end of the day, it's like what I was experiencing being blindfolded, having been touched with, which was my heart pounding, and I'm like having this rush of adrenaline. Well, that means somebody around here is having that exact feeling right now because they're just learning that they're a trader with our masks off, right? So I was looking around, seeing if anybody stood out to me, and there's a few people who stood out, and I kept mental note of that. Again, Kevin was like a given to me, so I didn't even have to think twice about him. But it was the other potential two traders that I had to, start pondering about. And I think that I had Coco and Thompson on my radar, and then Omer was another one. I was the least sure about him. It was just going off of a physiological kind of, he just turned very red. But again, I understand that being at the table in general is stressful. So I didn't want that to be the sole thing. But Thompson and Coco were on my radar. I was leaning more towards Coco, but after driving in the car with Thompson and Omer after our competition, I completely wrote Thompson off as a trader. So that only left Coco for me. And funny enough, it ended up being Coco and Kevin. So
Well, we have to talk about the challenge.
yeah.
I'll give you credit where credit is due. You were a big brother comp beast, okay? We
Yeah,
can't take that away from you.
yeah, yeah.
Were you hoping to lean into that a little bit more and be like this physical contributor as you need to win challenges to get
Mhm,
money?
mhm,
Or did you
mhm.
want to like maybe not use that too much because it could possibly make you a threat? We've seen traders kill physical threats all the time.
Yeah,
What was your thought process, especially since you ended up being on the physical team?
yeah. I think for me, I knew that, again, because I'm a faithful now, I need to be in a mindset of playing too faithful. And as much as I was more disappointed about not getting the gold in the whole ordeal because of just the competitor in me. But on the game aspect, it did exactly what I needed it to. People started talking about me as being a potential trader, which is great for me because I need some suspicion on me, especially with Kevin in the house, and I know he's the trader. So it worked in my favor with the whole, potential slip up, if you want to call it that. But for me, it was a battle because I'm like, I want to get the gold. I want to make sure I'm on point with the competitions. But if anybody is going to be suspicious of me, it's because of my lack of, if I'm not performing in the competitions, they're gonna be like, whoa, why is this comp beast not performing all right? That is suspicious. So if there's anything for me to really leverage it and to take advantage of, it would have been that, and that's how it was happening. Because by the time after we got back to the manor from the competition, everyone was like, whoa, what happened with Ty? I thought he was this big competitor, so he was doing exactly what I needed it to do. So
I do have to ask about putting someone on the dock as a sacrifice.
mhm.
I'm curious because it seemed like Curtis was trying to push you to be the sacrifice and you were not
Yeah,
having it.
yeah, yeah.
And Dom kind of has this open question about maybe who contributes the least and we get someone come off the boat. But was that initially who you wanted to see kind of sacrificed, or were you
No,
leaning a
not at
different
all.
way?
Definitely leading a different way. Again, I can only speak about what is shown in the show. So what I would say is that, Curtis had, made his comment towards me. I felt a little way towards it because, I rode to the competition with Curtis and Shaughnessy. So for me, those are my priorities in the boat. I'm like, me and these two people need to be on this boat because I only trust you guys right now. Dom is the only one that I didn't have a relationship with yet because I hadn't had a chance to talk to him before this competition. So I'm like, if anyone needs to get off the boat, Dom, my boy, you got to go, right? But unfortunately, Dom had made a comment, something along the lines of, well, I think whoever contributed the least should get off. And what I was hoping was going to happen was that Shaughnessy was going to put up a fight, but she didn't say anything. Because if she had said something, I could have backed her up and said, honestly, like Shaughnessy was actually the one that unlocked us from the chain. So Dom, I think you should be doing it, but she didn't put up any fight. So I was like, damn, like she just jumped off. And I'm not gonna say, oh well, wait, Shaughnessy, come back, because now I'm gonna be one delaying us, and then two, now there's gonna be some kind of conflict between me and Dom, right? So I just had to be like, all right, well, I'm sorry, but we got to keep going. And yeah, I didn't want to see me, Shaughnessy, or Curtis on that doc, but unfortunately, Shaughnessy, being the kind-hearted person she was, I guess she felt pressured to jump off. Unfortunately,
Well, we end up the challenge. You did get some money, but I am curious, why go back and get the gold? I was like, you're already there. There's 3 minutes
yeah.
left. Just stay there. You're safe for the night.
No, we're
Why go
not.
back?
That was why. That was why
Oh,
we needed the
okay.
goal to be safe. So in order for
Okay.
us to have been secured for the night, we needed to have secured the gold. So that was the whole big ordeal. How do you guys leave somebody and not bring back the gold? It seems like people are saying sabotage, right? And it's all blaming on time. But last time I checked, there was four of us in the boat and two of us in the dock. So I'm not sure how anybody seemed to forget. Oh, well, Ty came back to the boat without gold, right? It's always Ty's fault. So I'll take it on the chin. If that's how it has to be. So be it.
Okay, so you get back from the challenge, and it's seeming like everyone's just chatting, connecting. Is there someone in that time that you felt like you were starting to build a relationship? Obviously, you just mentioned Shaughnessy, but was there
Yeah.
anyone else that stood out to you and you were like, you know what, I can rock with this person?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right even before we left for the challenge, I had a really good talk with Ria. I feel like we connected really well. We had a very similar way of communicating, of familiarity, if you want to call it that. And that was somebody who I definitely could have saw myself working with in the long term. But Curtis as well. Curtis was probably my second in command, if you want to call it that. Like person I trusted pretty much on equal level, if not maybe even a little bit more than Rhea, just because of the time together that we had. Shaughnessy was a third. I was still on edge about her because I'm trying to think production wise. I'm like, well, if you're gonna put somebody in the turret who just seems just so nice and so like unsuspecting, well, you're gonna put the East Coaster in there, right? Like the person that everybody loves, the kind East Coast girl, right? So she would have been a great trader, I think, and someone who could have probably floated under the radar for a long time. So even though I liked her and I wanted to build with her, I was just kind of on edge. I needed a little bit more conviction as to why she is not a trader. I didn't have that yet, but yeah, my top two people definitely Curtis and Rio.
Well, you end up kind of getting pulled into the night. And I was immediately nervous when I saw the environment you were in. You were back in the cemetery. Please walk us through your thoughts, because like I can't imagine all the things going on.
Yeah, yeah. It was crazy. I just remember being hooded up and taking a long walk into a very dark place, and then the hoods come off and the blindfolds come off, and I see Venus beside me, and I see two hooded figures in front of me, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna assume those are the traders, and their identities are still hidden, but we're about to find out. But immediately I'm kind of been like, all right, what's going on? Let's do a top down analysis. Why am I likely here? There's a graveyard in front of me, or a tombstone in front of me, so I'm assuming somebody's dying, and it's not gonna be the trader, so it's gotta be one of us, me and Venus, right? So um, I kind of piece together what I think is gonna happen in terms of there will be a recruitment and someone's dying. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm likely here because I know Kevin's a trader. So one of these people is definitely Kevin. And if I'm here, it's because Kevin's trying to recruit me. Again, Coco is in my mind, so I'm not going to be surprised by here, but I'm also like, okay, well, either which way, it's somebody else. Probably not Omer, but whatever. They come down, reveal themselves. I kind of chuckle because I'm like, damn, like the exact same people that I know are traders. It's you guys. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I understand. Like I already have my perfect scenario here in terms of Kevin. I'm here because of Kevin. Coco's biggest concern is going to be, if they're going to recruit one of us, her red flag will be me and Kevin's relationship. She knows me and Kevin are friends in real life. So, rightfully so, you would never want to be a third wheel in a situation where, people who have a previous relationship are going to be working together, especially in a very sensitive environment like that, right? So I'm like, all right, well, how am I going to play this? I can try to make a very strong pitch and show that I'm a strong social player, or I can lean into I'm just a dumb jock. You know what I mean? Like you guys can discard me whenever you want. So I'm gonna give my pitch and make it as vanilla as possible, as basic as possible, so that it doesn't set off any more red flags for Coco. Because if Coco is seeing that she's in the turret with Kevin Jacobs, who is arguably one of the best social players ever, and a sales guy, you know what I mean? He'll sell sand to the freaking beach. And then on top of that, you see Ty make a great strong pitch. It's like, damn, now I got two strong guys who can really talk. And on top of that, they already have a personal relationship. That's dangerous for me if I'm Coco, right? So I completely see that. And then I was also banking on, Venus potentially trying to throw me under the bus a bit, because what I wanted to do was be able to rally back and say, hey guys, look, Venus is trying to throw me under the bus while she's under some pressure. Like imagine what she would do to you guys. If she was under some pressure at the trader, look what she would do. But either way, we give our pitches, and initially I see Kevin, it seems like he knows what he wants and he's gonna take it. And then Coco makes a comment like, okay, Kevin, just do it. I'm like, perfect, Kevin. I know she's gonna regret this later, maybe for a short time, but we can figure that out later. Just take your pick and don't think too long. Don't give her enough time to think and backtrack. And then even Venus made a comment like, "Oh my gosh, Kevin's gonna get his way." And I'm like, but I was looking in Kevin's eyes and I seen some hesitation. I'm like, no, not yet. And I'm like, damn, bro, like this is how it's gonna go. So I see the gears start to turn, and now I'm starting to get a bit stressed. I'm like, damn, this is not gonna be good, because if Kevin doesn't take his option now, I know Coco is gonna get her way. Because another thing I noticed about Coco very early on is that she's very observe
Observant?
observant. Sorry, brain clog there. She's very observant, and she'll float around and kind of take in information. I don't know if she realizes she does it, but it was something I noticed about her, because I'm very much like that. Like I'm quiet and I'm taking in what's going on in all different sorts and parts of the room. And she was doing the exact same thing when I'm having conversations. So I'm like, oh, she's picking up information about me. So I know that she's very privy to the dynamics right now between all of us, between me, Kevin, me, Venus, and she knows, like she said, she's the reason Venus is there. So if anything, if Venus ends up in the turret with her, she's very likely to be more loyal to her because Coco is the one that brought Venus into the turret. Whereas if I end up in the turret, I'm probably gonna be more loyal to Kevin because I'm the reason, or he's the reason I'm there. So it was a very stressful moment of just seeing Kevin, go back and forth in his own head, and then I'm like, dang, as time went on, Coco started digging her heels in more, and she started to be more assertive with, no, no, I need Venus here. It wasn't like, oh, I don't know what to do anymore. It was like, no, I need Venus. So now I knew that the tides were kind of shifting away from me. But as a fan of Kevin Jacobs myself, and much like a lot of people are, you think, well, Kevin's gonna figure this out. Kevin, he can talk and get what he wants. So I was just banking on him being able to formulate something in his head to say, no, Ty is the better option for us because X, Y, and Z. However, we didn't get to that, and we see how it played out.
Well, he did back you a bit, so I feel like, he didn't let you down
Yeah.
without a fight.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you've played two of Canada's biggest strategy shows, what
Mm-hmm.
did the traders teach you about yourself as a competitor that maybe Big Brother Canada didn't?
That's a great question, and it's gonna be a very challenging one to answer because my time is so short. But what I would say, I guess something I learned on chairs is not to leave the power in somebody else's hands. As much as I wanted to hold Kevin to a certain standard and say, I expect that you could get this done, I should have took it upon myself to say, no, I'm gonna get this done. You know what I mean? I know that I have the ability to do that and to sway people, and I should have taken the opportunity. But in my mind, it was a strategy for me to downplay my strengths. But maybe that was a moment that I should have leaned into. Right? So I can't blame Kevin. I can only blame myself, and I'm not going to be hard on him or myself. I did what I thought was best in the moment, much like I'm sure he did. So hopefully it works out. It works out for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I have to ask you this because it was asked on the show. Is overconfidence a curse?
Uh, I mean, I guess we'll have to watch the rest of the season to find out. I guess in my situation, maybe it was, but we'll have to watch the rest of the season to find out.
Okay. Well, my final question for you is this. Who are you rooting for, the faithfuls or the traitors?
One thing about me, loyalty is one of the highest order of priorities to me. So I'm going to say I hope Kevin can bring it home as a Big Brother Canada alumni. However, if he's not able to pull it off, then I'm team faithful to the end because at least if Kevin, a fellow Big Brother Canada alumni, can't take it home, I'd prefer to be on a season where the faithfuls finally win, and I can at least say that I died a faithful on the first season of the franchise history where faithfuls won.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, Ty.
Thank you for your time, Josie. Appreciate you.